Block, and we've been talking about a great many things this morning, including sending refugees and asylum seekers to Rwanda because Britain and Europe is quite simply getting filled up with people from all over the world. And there's a problem in some parts of the world which is also getting worse, because whenever we have NGOs and human rights groups piping up about what our government does to try to deter various forms of illegal immigration and try to control various forms of legal immigration, they keep very quiet about things that happen everywhere else. Because I spotted a story this week in Pakistan, where it was announced that they want to get rid of all undocumented migrants currently in their country. And this includes up to 1.7 million Afghan migrants who could be sent back to their Taliban-run country. And what I saw yesterday on the border is an awful lot of people fleeing out of Pakistan before they get deported. But they're going back to a place that they've already run away from. So we need to find out what is going on there, because apart from anything else, what we do know is that an awful lot of Afghan nationals have gone to Pakistan hoping that they can be transferred to Britain because they might qualify to come here under an Afghan scheme for refugees. But they're being held in hotels in Pakistan, paid for by British taxpayers. I can now speak to the foreign affairs correspondent at UnHerd and author of War in 140 Characters. He is David Patrikarakos. David, very good morning to you. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Why is suddenly this all going on in Pakistan? Why have they suddenly taken this, what seems to be a pretty aggressive stance on people who are in their country illegally?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of speculation about that. The Pakistanis are saying it's to do with Afghans being involved in Islamist terrorism and posing a security threat. It does seem, however, that it might be the result of sort of internal political machinations within Pakistan, especially if you think about the recent internal struggles around former leader Imran Khan and so on and so forth. I mean, I spotted this story actually because with everything going on in Gaza, what we're seeing here in Pakistan is an expulsion of up to 1 million people, and no one is saying anything. Whereas every day we're getting people like the lady you just mentioned, for example, tweeting, posting, writing ill-advised and ill-considered and ignorant things about Gaza. Yet about this, we hear nothing. No. That was my point.
Well, I mean, I think that's a very good point to make, because I think those of us who like to think of ourselves as relatively neutral on all matters, we haven't heard anything about what's been going on in Yemen. We haven't heard anybody demonstrating about Saudi Arabia, who have been supposedly shooting refugees on the border, sometimes who were trying to get into the country. We don't hear anything about what goes on in Ukraine anymore. We don't hear anything about all sorts of horrible stuff that goes on in China with the Uyghur Muslims, and there is a certain kind of what I would call hypocrisy to these virtue-signalling lefties, Guardian types, who seem to think that the best thing to do in this particular situation with the Middle East is to just make fun of Israel and call them the bad guys. I mean, I was saying earlier, I watched Question Time last night on the BBC, and it's quite shocking how many people have no time whatsoever for the plight of the Israeli hostages.
I know. I mean, look, it's absolutely scandalous. And what was really instructive for me and quite depressing was when the 7th of October massacres happened and the aftermath of it. We saw so many people from certain sections, on the left and some on the hard right, but mainly the sort of broader left, try to minimize, downgrade, excuse what were barbaric atrocities. I mean, it really was quite striking. And as you say, there's nothing about Assad, nothing about the Uyghurs, nothing about what's happening on the Saudi border. So it seems to be a very selective sense of outrage, cherry-picked outrage, you might say. And I find it very illuminating and very depressing in equal measure.
No, of course. And so as far as the border scenes that we saw yesterday that you were tweeting about, and some of the collections of people trying to go back into Afghanistan, would these be mostly people who have fled Afghanistan because of the Taliban?
I would say so, yes. And, in one sense, we're talking about, Pakistan sending people back to the Taliban. And, there are many people who have, fled in genuine fear of the Taliban. Reports came to me through a friend of, people going house to house looking for Afghans, checking their documents. And these are people I know that have genuinely fled the Taliban. Right. What is unfolding here is a genuine human rights crisis, regardless, of your views on the wider issue of undocumented migrants. And yet we're hearing nothing about this. So I think there are a lot of people who are going to go back and face something that they don't want to face, as well as I'm sure some people who, were there illegally, amidst the million. And Pakistan is, I suppose, correctly getting rid of. But I do need to say that people being sent back to face the Taliban is something very, very serious indeed, and something that we don't generally do in Britain.
Right.
You know,
Well, I
regardless
mean,
of what
my
people say, there have
understanding.
been cases.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding, David, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that an awful lot of those who fled Afghanistan into Pakistan and who are being currently housed by the British government, effectively, while they wait to see whether they can come here. I mean, an awful lot of them fall into that category, don't they?
Look, that may well be true. That I've looked into less. I take a broader Middle East perspective of this. I was sort of coming at this from looking at it from the Gaza perspective and the hypocrisy that we're seeing in terms of the reaction. In terms of the British aspects of it, I'm less familiar with that.
No, sure. You've just been in Israel as well. Let me ask you about that, David, because obviously we've got quite heavy things going on at the moment. We're expecting to hear from one of the leaders of the Hezbollah organisation, I think either later this morning or this afternoon. Israel already warning Lebanon and Hezbollah not to get involved. What are you hearing from your people?
So look, this is a very, very good point. Yes, I actually went from Ukraine to Israel. So it's been one war after another. So I was in northern Israel recently on the border with Lebanon, where Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, obviously has been ordering missile strikes. Yeah. Now, what the IDF were telling me and what was instructive in terms of what I saw was that so far Hezbollah is striking just inside the border. Right. So they're not striking deep into Israel, which the IDF assesses means that Lebanese Hezbollah at this moment in time do not want to escalate fully into what might be a regional and then global war. That, however, could change. Nasrallah has so far said very little, which is really important. Usually you can't shut him up, right. But so far he's been quite subdued in what he said, and the implications for this in terms of the security analysis is that he does not want to escalate. That said, you never know what happens. And missile goes wrong, hits a bus full of Israeli school children, Israel fires back, Lebanon reacts, Iran gets involved, and this is how we escalate. 1914 situation. It is incredibly tense in Israel. I was up in the north. I was also up in the south, down by the Gaza border. I stood on Cobes Hill overlooking Gaza. I saw those Hamas rockets fire up into the sky. I was caught in a rocket attack in a southern Israeli-born town. I saw Hamas rockets heading towards civilian targets and Israel's Iron Dome system shoot out of the sky and intercept them. It is a very, very intense situation there. It is a major war and it could escalate further.
And I think for anyone who's never been in that kind of situation, it's very, very difficult to imagine. I was speaking to someone who had just come back from Tel Aviv who said, you know, what was once a very vibrant 24/7, you know, a city full of nightlife, full of young people, full of street parties and all sorts of things is literally like a dead zone. There's nothing happening.
Completely. I mean, it's like a ghost town in many states. And this is a very vibrant city. A vibrant city, by the way, they may say, that has an annual gay pride parade. I think it was Queers for Palestine the other day on social media. I would like to ask these people if they would like to walk down Gaza having a gay parade, see how long they last. Right. So, yes, it's unfortunate that Tel Aviv is a once vibrant city is now so dampened.
Yeah, absolutely right. So would you say this is a pretty crucial weekend then? I mean, we've had many, but this one sounds like a very, very important weekend.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a fair assessment. I think what Nasrallah says is going to have a lot of ramifications around the world, certainly in the region. Everyone is looking to see what Lebanese Hezbollah does. If they open up another front, then Israel will be fighting on many fronts, actually. Look, the Houthis are now, the Iran-backed Houthis are firing missiles at it. Hamas is on its southern border. Lebanon opens the northern front. And bear in mind, Hezbollah is a far more capable organization than Hamas, has far greater rockets, has far greater strategic depth. It is a serious problem. That said, the last time they went to war, Israel really did a number in Lebanon. So Hezbollah do not want that to happen again. The big constant in all of this, of course, is Iran. Yeah. Iran is funding and backing Hamas. Iran is funding and backing Hezbollah. Iran is funding and backing the Houthis. It is Iran looking, and I really want to make this point, Mike, because this is something that's really relevant to you and to your viewers, I think. Yeah. What we are seeing now are a lot of powers, spoiler powers, Russia, China, Iran, who think that the Western-led order is weak, and they are looking to punch holes in it wherever they can. Make no mistake, a Western front that now runs from Kiev all the way to Tel Aviv is emerging. And all of these powers that oppose us are doing whatever they can to punch holes in it and to probe for our weaknesses. And we cannot fall back.
No, exactly right. David, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. David Patrikarakos there, reporting into us from UnHerd.